Hi guys, my name's Mel, and I've just created a YouTube channel called, can't remember because I've got MS and I've got a bad memory, Me and My Many Scars, which is going to be basically focused on MS related issues, as well as a bit of lifestyle stuff, but in relation to my experience and the experience of a lot of people who have MS or multiple sclerosis. So to start with my first video, I've been seeing quite a lot of my MS story videos on YouTube and across social media, and they've been really helpful, I think, for people to explain their experience of their journey with multiple sclerosis from diagnosis and even before then, their experiences going through diagnosis and treatments and their life since, really. So I thought it would be a great idea for the very first video to put something together of my MS story to explain how I've come to where I have with managing my condition and how it affects my life in general. Bear with me, this is my first time I've ever recorded anything, first time I've ever used YouTube to actually put out a video, so it's going to be a bit more on the amateur side, but hopefully you'll be able to glean some useful information from the experiences I've been through. So, starting with my own story with MS, I'm just reading my blog at the same time, so excuse me switching between. Basically, 16, 17 years ago, so I've lived with this condition quite a long time, I believe. I went on a holiday with a mate camping in Europe. Great fun. I thought that would be, fine, camping in a tent by a lovely lakeside, going up hills to the beer, Kellers, and so on. When I got there, I had absolutely no energy. And I really struggled to kind of walk anywhere. I mean, I could at the time. I put that down to camping and not being particularly fit at the time. I was quite overweight, and so I didn't think much about it. My feet felt really numb, and I kept having to stop every few seconds when we were going places. But as I was going kind of up and down hills, it was in Switzerland, I thought it must be that. It must just be me being unfit. So following that, I got back home to England in 2005. I'd also noticed some strange other things in my body, various numb patches, and also some mental health issues that I'd not experienced before and didn't really have a reason for. I fell out with my friend on this holiday, just quite a lot of anxiety, a bit of depression, and I'd never really suffered with that before and didn't really understand why that was going on. That summer, I got a wicked new pair of DM sandals, and I totally loved them. But they had quite a coarse kind of underside on the sole, and my feet started going numb, really numb. I could still walk, but it was like having a blanket over my toes. So, like you're being touched through a blanket. It's a strange feeling. And I thought it's the shoes, they're new, they're rubbing me up the wrong way. So I stopped wearing them, but the numbness didn't go away. And over that summer of 2005, the numbness spread from my feet all the way up my legs, and it was slowly, quite insidious. Not you wouldn't necessarily notice, subtle. It's only when I think back now, actually, how numb I was. So it spread all the way up just to underneath my rib cage. And I kind of had a hugging feeling around my rib cage, which was quite a lot of pressure, which I now know is one of the symptoms of MS called the MS hug. And so that kind of prompted me to speak to my friends and family and go to the doctors. I get to the doctors, my normal GP, who was great actually, and obviously I now can see in his head was making some connections of this could possibly be something neurological, and he sent me with an emergency letter to go to my local hospital emergency unit, and this was back in when I lived in Essex in Colchester, and they were great and got me through triage and so on. I got admitted for testing, basically neurological testing. That first night in the unit was pretty scary. Lots of different people presenting with different issues. And it was a mixed ward, so the whole experience was a bit frightening, especially not really knowing what was going on with me. In hospital, I had a barrage of tests, really. I had an MRI scan of my brain and spinal cord, a spinal column, and I had a lumbar puncture. I'll go into all of these in a separate video so I can explain what they are and how they affected me and how you might be able to take something from that. So I had those. I had the normal kind of, tapping your knee kind of tests from the doctors, and really they seemed quite sorry, that's my phone going off. Really they seemed quite confused. They didn't really know what was going on. um, and meanwhile I was in the hospital bed, and they had the internet above your bed on a computer, which was not a good idea for me because I'm a bit of a researcher, so I'm online researching, and when I put my symptoms in, it's coming up with, brain virus, brain cancer, all of these awful, awful things. So after all these tests, I was in hospital for a week. When the diagnosis came back, a couple of months later, I was called into the neurologist's office, and they gave me the diagnosis of relapsing remitting MS. I was actually a bit relieved in a bizarre way, because although it is a serious condition, serious disease, I saw something like brain cancer as more serious, which of course it can be in terms of life expectancy and so on. And so I kind of took it on the chin at the time, but now I look back, I realise I was in a bit of shock, because when you're first diagnosed with something serious, of course, it's a lot to take on board mentally. Diagnosis was in October of 2005, and the symptoms I first went to the doctor about in the August, so that's the time period we're talking about. The actual neurologist that I saw was a brilliant man, obviously very intelligent, bedside manner. I'm not sure really. His first kind of opening line to me was, well, it is MS. I'd rather have cancer than MS because at least it's treatable. And I'm like, that's not the thing to say to someone when they've just been diagnosed with a serious condition. Looking back, I can kind of see what he means in terms of you can manage the condition of multiple sclerosis, although it is a progressive disease. Some cancers obviously cannot be managed, and so he was making that comparison, I think. But it's not helpful. It's not ever helpful to compare diseases or conditions or illnesses, because no one can experience it like you can. What's true to you is your reality, and so that was really important to me to understand. And the mental health and psychological issues that came from my diagnosis and the disease, they have been my main issues really with the condition. I've suffered mostly with psychological problems, as well as all of the physical issues that come with MS, but I'll go through my symptoms in another video as well. At that time I was signed off work for a couple of months to kind of get to grips with my reality and what was going on with me. I walked with a cane at the time. I could walk, but I was wobbly on my feet, and that numbness that had spread was very slowly going back down again, but I still had issues moving around because of it. I also had toileting issues, because if you're completely numb in your nether regions, when you need to go to the loo, you don't always know. And so there were lots of issues that I was dealing with, but as we were going on through, so from that October 2005 to August 2006, that was when I first got offered treatment, some kind of disease-modifying therapy, DMTs, is what the medical people refer to them as. And at that time, in 2006, there were 4, I think, available to people in the UK. And I decided to go with Rebif, which is a beta interferon, a drug that basically, all of these disease-modifying drugs are designed to slow the progress of the disease down and to limit the amount of disability that occurs as a result of your relapses. So it doesn't treat the symptoms that you have day to day. There are other drugs for that, for some of those anyway. But these DMTs are useful in slowing down the progression of the disease to about 30% success rate in slowing it down. So I decided on Rebif, started that year in the August, had so many problems with that particular drug, not because of the drug itself, but I suffered with the side effects of it. It has flu-like symptoms that you get when you've taken the drug. Now, there are ways to deal with those. You can take ibuprofen, paracetamol, things that will manage those symptoms. I didn't do enough research. I didn't manage my treatment properly. I don't hate injections in general, but way back then, back in the day, in 2006, it came with a pen, a Revy Smart pen. So it's like the injection goes inside a plastic pen, and it automatically does the dosage for you, and you hit a button and it goes in. back then in 2006, this was a scary, you push the button and bang, and it went in and it was painful, and kicked off my anxiety that had come about because of MS. And so I just basically, I tried to keep up with it. I tried it for a year and a half, and I just felt that my quality of life was going downhill because of taking these drugs. I wasn't sleeping, I had uncontrollable shivering overnight, but this is because I didn't take it in the way I should have done. I didn't take it consistently enough, and I didn't use the other ways of monitoring my condition, and the side effects of the drugs. So a lesson be learned there. Do your research. Many more drugs available now, many different options. You don't have to have injections, but the injections that exist have different and more modern applications now. So don't be put off. My advice would be, and it's only my advice, I'm not a doctor, I'm not any kind of medical specialist, but my advice would be come at your disease from every corner that you can. And one of those corners is the DMTs that are on the market now. I will link below the details of, there's a really good NHS website that compares all of the drugs, so you can see what the side effects are, what the studies have been like, what success rates that they've had, and it compares them. It's My Choices, I think it's called, but I'll tag it below. This time, right through to 2008, I worked full time the whole time with MS. I did have to have time off for appointments, and I did have some periods of sickness, probably more than a normal person would because of the disease, but I managed. And I was in a kind of bit of a stressful personal situation during that time as well, so that didn't kind of help with my anxiety levels, but my mental health issues really kind of spiked over this time. But coming back into 2008, I was in a different situation personally, much calmer, and I decided to switch my disease-modifying therapy to another injectable called Copaxone, which is a daily injection. And unfortunately, I found the same kind of issues. The injection itself was intramuscular, and I found that very painful. Although, again, I think because of my anxiety, I worked it all up in my head so much. I did my research at the time, but because I'd worked myself up so much about it, it wasn't worth taking it for the toll it took on my mental health. So that's a real personal thing. I have no affiliations with any of the treatments or drugs, and I can't say that it was a terrible drug for me. It didn't work. It made my mental health as part of my MS worse. So after a few months, to be honest, about 9 months of taking Copaxone, I stopped and I went drug free for a while, and right up until 2018, so 10 years later, I was, as far as I can tell, relapse free. Over that time, obviously, I'm not being monitored necessarily. I fell out of the NHS system. I don't know why. So I wasn't being monitored by my MS nurse or a neurologist, and I had no MRIs done regularly, so I couldn't see if my disease was progressing. Excuse me. But I would say that over that time was the best health I've had with this illness, and that's a good long time, 10 plus years, until 2018, December 2018. Went on a fabulous holiday with my partner. Went to Tenerife on one of these timeshare things where they're trying to sell the stuff to you, and we're relaxing in the sunshine. It's all very lovely, very nice, cocktail in hand, and reading my book. And I can remember, this is a weird memory, holding up my reader to shield my eyes from the sun because it was sunny. I'm on a lounger, and then suddenly I thought, gosh, isn't this a shame? I know it's December, but in Tenerife it's still sunny there. It's the place to go, and it had clouded over massively, like it was going to rain or something. And I said to my partner, "Oh, isn't that a shame that it's going to rain?" And she said, "What do you mean? It's full sunlight." And put down my reader, and I could see. It's really strange to explain this. This is a symptom called optic neuritis that is kicked off another relapse for me. Basically, it was like someone putting gauze over your eyes, like a scarf, a grey scarf. So one eye was fine, but this other eye, had this grey filter over it, and in the dead centre was completely blind. But I thought to myself, I've stared at the sun. I shouldn't have had my reader up there. I'm being silly. So, I had a sleep, I relaxed, a little bit worried, but, what's the point in worrying too much? It just makes everything worse. So I kind of left it. That night at dinner, I was really struggling to walk up and down stairs, but I'm not sure, excuse me, whether that was my mobility or the eyesight. So it was a funny old mixed bag. I didn't say anything to my partner because I just thought I don't want to worry her with it all. So I slept on it, woke up the next morning completely blind in my right eye, obviously, which is a bit scary. So I kind of calmly, or as calmly as I could, told her about it, and we got a doctor from the resort came and examined me and gave me a letter to go off to the local hospital in Tenerife, where they took me in, did a few tests, like I had to have another MRI and a CAT scan and things like that. They knew I had MS. Had another eye scan with the ophthalmologist, and they diagnosed it as being another relapse. So I was admitted for 5 days, which was interesting, given that our flight was due to leave. It's all very expensive to deal with. But I was in an IV drip with steroids in for those 5 days. I should say during this period of time before that relapse in 2018, the previous 8 years were fairly healthy. I'd lost a lot of weight. I was running a dog walking business, so I was out every day in the sun, vitamin D, great for MS. And I was exercising regularly, not a gym bunny, because I have some mobility issues still, but, pretty much looking after myself. Nice home life, married, settled, not too many stresses. So it was a surprise that December on holiday when the relapse happened. But there we are. So then we went through their treatment, as I've mentioned. Got back home at Christmas time. Thankfully had my family here who were able to look after me along with my wife. And so then, since December 2018 to now, where are we, February 2020, I'd say that I haven't really recovered from that relapse properly, to be honest. I've had lots of new issues come in. The eyesight hasn't fully come back. Although with optic neuritis, apparently it does more or less come back to kind of 90% of your normal vision. Mine, I've been unlucky and it hasn't done that. And so I have a significant eyesight loss in one eye. But the other eye is okay. So fingers crossed that won't happen to the other eye. But, I've had really good support from my friends and family to help me deal with these things. And I've had good support from my MS nurse, from MS physio, who are brilliant. I go there every week to go through and jumping on a trampoline, which is awesome. Just good fun, really. And but that kind of helps with my coordination and all those things. So I would say it's really important to have a team around you that is made up of not just medical professionals, your MS specialist nurse, your neurologist that you'll see once or twice a year, your nurse you see about 6 months a year once you're in the NHS system. But there are many other people. There are dietitians, there are MS psychologists and counsellors. There are, I've mentioned the physiotherapists. See, this is the memory issues kicking off again. There are lots of things you can do. Your GP also, they're not obviously a specialist in MS, but they can help refer you to the right paths for certain treatments for certain symptoms. My symptoms never went away completely, but they kind of die down and flare up again when I have a relapse and go down again. And that's the course of this disease for everyone. Not the same for everyone, not the same level of disability or the same level of, nastiness with each symptom. That's very different. We're all completely different. So this is just my experience. But at the moment, I have kind of kept quite a lot of the issues I had from that relapse. And here we are. But I'm still walking. I'm still mobile. My confidence has been knocked quite a lot, but I've got a great support network around me. So I have sticks that I can walk with when I'm having an off day. And that's what you find, I think, with MS. You have good days and you have bad days, which is why it's important to try and focus on the good when you can, because that really is the key to maintaining a calmer lifestyle, which is all going to help you stay away from those relapses. We can't control these things. But we can certainly help ourselves where we can to try and stay positive. An update for me is that I have retired, ill health retired. Partly, to be honest, I chose a career, a business for myself after being a PA in the city for years. I chose to run a dog walking business, animal care business, which I loved and which was awesome. Love animals, but I think really with the mobility issues I've had since my last relapse, it wasn't working for me. I was having to be not 100% there for my animals, and that's not acceptable to me. So I wound the business down, and so now I am a stay-at-home wife. I don't know what else to describe myself as. I'm a retiree, so hence starting this channel, really trying to just help other people in a similar situation, other people who are diagnosed or worried about or interested in or has a relative with MS, multiple sclerosis. I'll do lots of other videos, hopefully, if you enjoy it, and it hopefully will help some of you, and I'll link lots of stuff below. If you have any questions about my experience or anything you want to know, please put a comment down below, and it would be great if you could like and subscribe if you think that this channel will be helpful to you. Okay, it's a lot about me, sorry. I'll try and be a lot more general and less fluffy in my next video, but it is my first one, so, there we go. Have a good day, everyone. Stay positive. Bye.